products. Secure your Survival Shield X2 today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139.
Another major health threat, this one in Toledo, Ohio, where everybody in the entire city has been told not to drink the water.
Ohio's governor declaring a state of emergency.
Did you know that the average person uses about 80 to 100 gallons of water at home every single day? If there's a water emergency, will you be prepared?
Panicked residents forming long lines throughout the day.
We're here at a supermarket in Toledo. You can see the shelves empty where water once was.
To stay safe and healthy during a crisis, you must have access to safe, clean water. Water which will not be available at your local grocery store.
There's a mad dash on right now to stock up on supplies.
The ProPure Pro 1 G2.0 water filtration system is a must-have for every modern, independently minded household. Protect your family's safety during an emergency. Go to InfoWarsStore.com today to purchase your ProPure Pro 1 G2.0 water filtration system or call 1-888-253-3139.
Introducing Secret 12, the new InfoWars Life vitamin B12 formulation. Most forms of vitamin B12 are highly processed and synthetic and cannot be properly absorbed by the body. That's why for real results, so many are having to turn to painful B12 injections, which are known to have higher absorption rates. Now, InfoWarsLife.com is excited to announce that we can bring you our most bioactive, powerful form of B12 that has been developed with our exclusive perfected process. Secret 12 is a binary of nutramedical grade, bioavailable coenzyme forms of B12, methylcobalamin, the same kind used in B12 injections, and adenosylcobalamin. Secret 12 is simply taken by mouth, right on the tongue, and then swallowed. No needles, no injections. Don't take my word for it. Try it for yourself. Discover the secret. Secret 12. Secure your revolutionary Secret 12 formula right now at InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show. I have sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man. Thomas Jefferson. It's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network.
Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, and we have our reporters in Ferguson, Missouri, awaiting the grand jury indictment there, whether it is going to be an indictment or whether they're going to allow the officer to go free. We just spoke to Joe Biggs, and now we're going to go to Jakari Jackson to give us his assessment. And I want to get Jakari's reaction to what just happened this weekend, a shooting in New York City. Jakari, are you there?
I am, David. Jakari Jackson reporting from Ferguson, Missouri. Now, David, with the particular stories that you were telling me about the young man in the stairwell. Can you go over all those details again?
Yeah, basically what happened was you had, it was in a project in Brooklyn. You had a man walking with his girlfriend of several years, walking up the stairs, and they were on the 7th floor. It's called the Pink House Project in Brooklyn. A couple of officers came in. They were doing what they called a top-down patrol. They entered the stairwell, and one of the officers pulled out a gun and shot this man in the chest. And then they left. They didn't call any medical help or anything. The guy bled out there, arrived dead on arrival. And this is what the lady who was with him, her name is Butler, the guy who was shot and killed, his name is Mr. Gurley. She said they didn't present themselves or nothing and shot him. As soon as he came in, the police opened the door to the 8th floor staircase. They didn't identify themselves at all. They just shot. And then they didn't call for help, didn't call an ambulance, and he died. Now, the interesting thing, I think, Jakari, is that, this clearly is, I think, everything that we were told initially had happened in Ferguson with Michael Brown. That narrative was allowed to build for quite some time in Ferguson before the Ferguson police came out with some exculpatory evidence that would clear the officer. Nevertheless, here, that is not happening. Here we had the police commissioner come out right away, and this is what the police commissioner in New York said. He said, what happened last night was a very unfortunate tragedy. The deceased is totally innocent. He just happened to be in the hallway. He was not engaged in any criminal activity. So basically, he's essentially saying that, hey, this really was a hands up, don't shoot, except they didn't even get a warning. There wasn't even a hands up. There wasn't any order given. The guy, they saw the guy standing there with a woman and just pulled out a gun and shot him in the chest. I mean, what's your reaction to that? I just cannot believe that we live in a country where that kind of thing is happening.
Yeah, it's a horrible story, David, just in the similarities to the Mike Brown shooting. Regardless of what happened with Mike and Officer Darren Wilson, one of the things that people keep harping on out here, and rightfully so, is the amount of time that Mike Brown was left to pretty much bleed out in the street.
Yes.
No chance of respiration, no chance of getting to a hospital, and potentially having a contradictory story. So it's very alarming to me that these things continue to happen, not just to the people here in Ferguson, Missouri, but all around the country. And people are asking me on Twitter, what do you think about these racial shootings and all that? And I care just about as much about what happened here in Ferguson as the guy in New York, as Kelly Thomas, who was white, as the young man in Bastrop right outside of Austin who got tased and fell down and busted his head open.
Yeah.
I care about all these people. It's not so much a racial issue to me. Do these things happen to minorities quite a bit? Yes, they do. But they also happen to, white college girls who get arrested for jogging. All kinds of
you're talking
craziness going on.
A white collar girl, a white girl that, remember the video where the officer just comes out of nowhere and does like a body slam and knocks her into a park bench there.
Oh, yeah. I believe it was after some type of football game or some type of championship, and they were having some type of rally outside. And that video is actually, it's in the Cobra intro, where the cop just runs up and he hockey checks the girl and flips her backwards over a park bench. All types of crazy things like that.
So we need to have a real discussion about what the legitimate use of force by the police is and what is illegitimate and what is going to be done about it, what kind of oversight they're going to have. That is a tremendous problem throughout this country, and it affects everybody, whether they're living in the city or the country, whether they're rich or poor, black or white. It affects everybody, and yet we see this case in Ferguson. I believe that it was they let this thing run for a while, trying to build up tension deliberately, because I think Obama wanted to play the race card in this election, and it didn't work. Now, the other thing that's interesting about this case in New York, to me, is that at the same time this incident happened about these two cops walking into the stairwell, they see a man accompanied with a woman walking up the stairwell, no orders, nothing. They just pull out a gun, shoot the guy in the chest, and kill him. At the same time that happens, we see an analyst filing suit against the New York City Council because there was a report that was put out looking at excessive force in the New York City Police Department. It was put out by this same police commissioner who just said basically there was no criminal activity. In other words, taking the side of the innocent man who was killed, not trying to talk that down or make any excuses whatsoever for the officer who did that. He didn't say anything about the officer as far as I know, but he didn't make any excuses either. Nevertheless, he was making excuses a while back. There was a report about excessive force, and this analyst who brought it to their attention said, wait a minute, I think you're Grubering the data here, although he didn't use that phrase, but essentially the same thing that Jonathan Gruber's doing, where you can go in, you can massage the data to make it say anything that you want. He complained about that internally. They didn't do anything about it, and so he said, essentially, I said, finally, screw it, something needs to be done. I contacted my journalist friends and some city council members, and he went public with the information. At that point, the New York City Council fired him. As a whistleblower, he is now suing them for that. And so we see that the police are, even though this is a chronic condition, a chronic situation everywhere, and even though he's been upfront about this, I think, to try to diffuse things in New York, because if this happens in a stairwell in New York at the same time this Ferguson verdict comes out, and if they let the policemen go there, that's going to be massive riots in New York. So he had to talk that down. Yet, I don't really believe they want to do anything about excessive force. They pick these ambiguous cases, as Paul Watson pointed out, and they avoid really doing anything to change the way it's structured.
That's exactly right, because the situation is, David, is these things continue to happen. The policies don't change. They always want to brush it off as some rogue guy. But you think about the situation that happened in Houston with the schoolgirl who refused to get off her cell phone, cops slammed her to the ground and put a knee in her face. And it's the same tactic for, some 350-pound guy with a knife as it is for a, 90-pound schoolgirl. The problem is the tactics. The problem is the training. Or lack of training, for that matter. You send these guys out there and you just let them loose and hope for the best. That doesn't work. These guys need to be properly trained. And to the fact that Joe was speaking on earlier, the policeman who was running the show last night, even though we had some arrests and some other things going on, the officers last night were much more well-behaved than we had seen them in previous nights. And that's due to the proper leadership, and a lot of people in the community like that guy who was out there. So I hope those things can continue, but still, we can't just brush this off and say, okay, we'll burn this guy so we don't have another Ferguson happen here in New York City. No, you have to change the policies and let the people know that you are really trying to do something that's in their better interest.
Absolutely. And I hope that the situation in New York does not turn into something that is merely racial, because, of course, there are racial overtones to this situation as well, and there is a racial aspect to it. But as you pointed out, this is happening to everybody. We had the police in New York. Remember when they were chasing a suspect in New York? They just fired like 9 rounds at random.
Oh, yeah, was it outside of the Empire State Building? Yeah, it's outside of some building. And then they're like, so many people shot, like 9 people shot. Yeah. And the headlines almost made it seem like the guy did the shooting. Like, no, the police. It was like that scene from Pulp Fiction. They pull out the guns and shoot everything except the guy.
Exactly.
And
it would be funny if it wasn't so serious. And yet, that was not racially motivated. There has to be something done about the rules of engagement. But, they're talking about this situation, and immediately you got a former city councilman in New York put a racial spin on it. He goes, so here's an unarmed black 28-year-old in the stairwell, 2 officers, 1 Asian, 1 white, fully armed. He's unarmed. They meet him on the stairwell. He winds up dead with a bullet in his chest. I want to hear the justification for this one. Don't tell me the hallway was dimly lit. That's no reason to kill a black man on a stairwell. Now, okay, so there is difference in races between the people, but there has to be rules of engagement. There has to be external oversight of the police to keep this from happening to anyone. And the fact that it's happening more frequently to blacks, that's important, but it's not the only thing that matters here. That's the rules of engagement and the oversight that something needs to be done about. I hope that that's what people are going to push for with Ferguson as well as here in New York.
Yes, a lot of people we meet out here, there's a diverse crowd. Predominantly we have seen a large group of blacks out there, but there are also white people out there, Asian people out there, people with anonymous masks on. You don't know what race they are. But, people, they come together in unity, old, young, white, black, whatever. And they just say, we want oversight. We want accountability for these officers and the actions that they take, because so often it's, occasionally they will burn somebody just to put a happy face on it, but we have to have from the ground up, top down, whatever it has to be, to get these guys in line and also hold them accountable. For all the accountability we talk about here, we see an officer go F yourself, got fired or suspended or whatever. I still haven't heard anything happen to the guy who was out there aiming a gun at people in the crowd.
That's right.
And that was the first day we got here on that Tuesday after Mike got shot, aiming guns, putting sniper dots on people's chests. As far as I know, nothing's happened to that guy. He hasn't been disciplined in any way at all that I know of.
That's right. Well, we're running out of time. You're going to be there tomorrow, of course. If the verdict is released, we'll be having coverage of that live on InfoWars tomorrow. We'll be back at 11 Central, 12 Eastern. Stay with us. We're going to have our reporters from Ferguson covering it tomorrow.
Unparalleled research in the development of a synergistic formulation based around the key concepts of super oxygenation. The next level in cleansing is here. With key ingredients backed by real clinical studies, the new Oxy powder, available through InfoWars Life, was invented during Dr. Group's research on the toxification of our bodies. Many herbal colon cleansers are harsh on the body and contain cheap and potentially dangerous ingredients, oftentimes full of synthetic fillers, GMOs, additives, or worse. Gently start cleaning your body with easy capsules that start working while you sleep. Oxy powder does not require time off work, and there's no need for bad tasting concoctions. Instead, Oxy powder slowly releases monoatomic oxygen into the intestinal tract and body. Experience the astonishing cleansing power of superoxide and ozonide technology. Go to InfoWarsLife.com or InfoWarsStore.com to get started with Oxy powder, or call 1-888-253-3139.
Aging starts at the cellular level. When cells become toxic, they die early and aging sets in. In the past decade, we have witnessed unparalleled scientific discoveries. During that period, key patented compounds have focused on mitochondrial growth, nerve growth, and rejuvenation. But no one has put together a formula that focuses directly on brain health, nerve growth factors, and optimizing your cellular energy at the same time. We now have the synergistic solution, DNA Force, just one of of the key compounds. BioPQQ is backed by major clinical studies and over 175 PubMed-listed published studies. You want the best that's out there at the lowest price anywhere? The ultimate value, cutting-edge, trailblazing game changer that also supports the InfoWar. Secure your DNA Force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139. DNA Force from InfoWars Life.